Down. 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 You may not go on the couch. No.
Okay. I'm sorry I cannot. If you have any questions, for the shiur, you could put them in the link in the chat, but I don't promise that I'll necessarily see them. The reason why I cannot hear you is because I put it on mute here by me, because if not, I hear myself on YouTube a few seconds in delay, and that would be off-putting. So let's start. Erev Pesach Sameach. It's nice to see you all, and I'm going to discuss broadly 3 topics tonight. I'm not going to discuss Pesach itself, but the preparations for Pesach. So I'm going to discuss cleaning and kashering. That's the first bit of the shiur. Then I'm going to discuss shopping for Pesach. That's going to be quite brief. And then getting rid of the chametz, which will include mechirat chametz, bdikat chametz, bi'ur chametz, and basically bring us up to Pesach. I'm not going to discuss Pesach itself. Please God, we'll have an opportunity to do that in the next 2 weeks, where we could have shiurim on Pesach itself, about the Seder, etc. So we'll start with cleaning for Pesach. So first of all, it is very important to understand that cleaning the house for Pesach, different parts of the house are done for different reasons. Most of the house we clean because there is a prohibition to have any chametz in our possession, whether we eat it or not. However, that chametz, according to the vast majority of opinions, and that is how we paskin, is that we are not worried about small crumbs. We are worried about significant bits of chametz, at least the size of an olive, which might be lying around, and if they are in our possession, then that is a problem. Crumbs, etc., then we don't count as anything. That's just filth. That is not chametz. Therefore, cleaning the house as good as we usually clean it is also okay for Pesach. We don't need to do extra cleaning anywhere in our home where we do not actually eat from. The only parts of the house where we have to be meticulous about are those parts of the house where we actually either prepare food or eat, because there the problem becomes not only eating, having chametz, but also by mistake we might eat the chametz. And there we have to be concerned even about small crumbs. If somehow crumbs get into our food, or not even crumbs, if we use a non-kosher for Pesach pot, and we use that for preparing food on Pesach, and yes, this is being recorded, then that is going to be a problem. So we do not want chametz to get into our food, and that's why where we prepare food and where we eat it, we are very careful about cleaning it in a way that chametz won't get into our food. So now let's get to the rest of the house. No need for spring cleaning or anything like that. just make sure there aren't big items of chametz anywhere. Of course, not if there are bottles of whiskey or something like that especially if we're not selling it, then we have to make sure they're not lying around anywhere in our house. We're not supposed to have chametz in our possession. Now cleaning the places where we eat. So first of all, we have to clean and kosher, because the surfaces which we worked on and the surfaces and utensils which we're going to use for food on Pesach have to be kosher for Pesach, because if they have filth, which is chametz on them, then that is enough to make the food which we prepare on them or within them not kosher for Pesach. So how do we kosher? So when it comes to koshering, we have to understand there are two main ways of koshering. The one is called hagalah, that means immersing in hot water and hot boiling water. And the other one is libun, that means burning in fire. And these two methods are different, because immersing in water basically is part of the process of cleaning whatever it is that we are koshering, because sometimes we get things that are stuck to the pots or whatever. They got stuck there through by means of heat, and therefore it's stuck very much. And heat might loosen it and have it help it come out. So we have to make sure that it is spotless clean before we put it in the water, and whatever we weren't able to, and whatever we barely see and we weren't able to see, that we assume that is washed off with the hot boiling water which we immerse it in. That is what hagalah is. Then we have libun, which is actually burning the whatever we don't want, burning the filth, the chametz in this case, on the utensil. So the libun is a much harsher method, and it is a method that goes further and is therefore not always friendly towards the utensils or surfaces which we apply it to, because when you take fire to something to an extent that will burn whatever is on it, it is quite hot. Many utensils won't be able to go, and surfaces won't be able to go through such a harsh method. Now, each one of these methods has its more lenient method, meaning there is hagalah, proper hagalah is in boiling water. There is also hagalah by pouring water. Now, pouring water is less hot than boiling water, so it won't help to everything, but it will help in some cases, which we're going to touch upon. Similarly, there is libun that is not to an extent that it actually burns everything, but it burns whatever is above the surface more or less in a more shallow way. That is called libun kal. That won't help everywhere, but it will help in some places. Soon I'll define better in a more exact way what is exactly libun chamur, proper burning, and what is libun kal, only above the surface. Okay. What requires hagalah, what requires libun? So generally speaking, we have a concept of kevol'o kach polto, by means of which the residue reached the surface or the utensil, that by the same mean we try to wash it off. So heat allows basically utensils that are used with heat, then things stick to them more, right? It's very easy to see. But things that we use with water, so pots which we boil in, then things might stick to it, but not as much as they would stick, for instance, to a pan which we put in the oven. Why? Because the tray in the oven is dry, and so it's not totally dry, but dry enough for the food to, that when it sticks, it's really difficult to get out. So in general, things that we used to boil, hagalah would be enough for that. Things that we used more in a dry sense, that they, meaning not as liquid as water, they could stick even better, even more, even stronger. There, it's not enough to just immerse it in water. There, the only way to get rid of the residue is by literally burning it. And the extent that we have to do it in order to burn it would be to basically put it to fire until either the metal glows or until it reaches a point where if I'll bang it with something, sparks will come out. As I said, most utensils won't survive such a harsh method, and that's why libun is something we barely do. Libun would help to things like that are made from cast iron, etc. They could handle such a method, but not many other things, not many other items. Okay. Also, when it comes to hagala, things that pots which we boil water in, then they must be the way to get rid of whatever is in it, of the residue, is to actually boil water in them or immerse them in boiling water. But for instance, let's take for instance cutlery. They never were in contact with chametz with boiling water. They weren't in the pot while it was boiling. Maybe something spilled on it with boiling water, but it spilled from something else. It wasn't in the pot, so it wasn't as hot. So theoretically, it would be enough to only pour water on it rather than immerse it in the hot water. The reason why we do immerse it is because from time to time, we might use a fork or a spoon to dip it, to mix a pot or to dip it in the pot. And we don't remember what cutlery we did use, what cutlery we didn't use for such activity. And therefore we immerse everything in the fire. But we have to know that there is a lenient opinion that says, no, even in this case, we wouldn't have to immerse it because we do not kosher a thing according to something that we might have done with it once or twice, but according to what is the majority of its usage. So if usually we don't use it in boiling water, it doesn't have to be kosher in boiling water. Pouring water on cutlery, for instance, might be enough, will be enough, according to this opinion. But that Ashkenazim at least do not follow that opinion. Ashkenazim require the cutlery to also be immersed. Okay. Another thing that we have to know is that earthenware, clay, and the like cannot be koshered. Why? Because it absorbs so much and so well that there is nothing we could do to make all that it absorbed to just to have it come out. There is no technique to do that. Theoretically, we could have it burned in libun. However, because usually it wouldn't survive a libun, it will crack. We don't bother with libun, and we don't, even if someone wants to, because we're afraid that someone won't do it properly because they're not able to. However, the Gemara says that if someone throws it into a furnace, then it will. So if you take someone needs to mute everyone. Let's see if I'm able to. I can't hear everyone, but let me try to see if I can mute everyone from here. Just a minute. I apologize. I cannot hear anyone who says anything because I myself, I shut myself from being able to hear anyone because, as I said, then I hear the YouTube. So just a minute. Here, participants, I go here. Mute all current and new participants. Yes. Okay. No, I don't want to allow participants to unmute themselves. Okay. Just a minute. Okay, if someone could please write to me in the comments if it's okay now, if it's muted, and I'll know that we're good to go. Great. Okay, thank you. Okay, so now what we do, okay. So I was saying that earthenware, clay, and the like cannot be koshered. It could be put into the furnace because once I throw it into the furnace, there is no way back. Okay, and that I'll soon explain might have a difference in what we say. Now, when it comes to libun, as I said, there is burning and there is what is called libun kal. Libun kal means that I also put it in the fire, but not to the extent that it burns everything, turns it into ashes, but at least the outer layer of the residue turns into charcoal. And in some cases that is good enough. I'm going to discuss when that's good enough and what is not. Now we're going to use all of this theoretical knowledge when we come to the kitchen. Oh, what's that? Oh no. Just a minute. I'll go and try to take care of that. Okay, sorry, I apologize. Apparently there's a party in the building and it might be that someone was smoking downstairs. Okay. So we're in the kitchen, cleaning it for Pesach. So how do we clean it? Starting with the working surfaces. Okay, so working surfaces, if it is done from marble, a real marble. Yes, it's proper stone. Not everything that is called here shaish in Israel is actually marble. Shaish is a generic word also for works for kitchen tops and work surfaces. So we have to make sure that even though whoever sold it to us told us it's shaish, it might not be shaish. It might be something else. But if it's marble, so that's stone. If it is basically a slab of marble or any other type of stone, granite. Also, not everything that is called granite is actually granite. Oh, sorry. We'll have to wait for it to stop. I'll put it on mute that it won't drive you crazy, but I'll take it off when it stops. Apologize. Okay. So if I know it's marble or granite, or if it is stainless steel, so then it is not a problem at all to clean and kosher. I clean well, take boiling water straight from the kettle, pour all over, and that basically koshers it. Some people use a glowing metal or something like that to put on it with the water. but that I think is too dangerous and doesn't fit most kitchens. We don't want to start going on with glowing metals in our kitchen. Some people use an iron. The reason is I want to explain the reason. As I said before, so what happens to surfaces? Sometimes, especially if it is proper stone or stainless steel, then we are able to take a pot straight off the fire and put it right onto the surface because it won't hurt the surface. And sometimes we might have done it. Now, if we do that, if there was a piece of pasta or something stuck at the bottom of that pot or on the surface when we put the pot, or even a piece of pasta, a grain of barley, whatever it is, then there is chametz, and that makes the surface chametz. Now, since it might have been there even when it's dry, we don't know if it was with water, without water, how exactly it happened. So it might even require libun, and that's why they do it together with a glowing thing. I don't think it's a good idea. Better to not do it. But because of things like that, if we do put hot pots normally directly on our working surfaces, those who do, it's a good idea to cover it, to not only clean it and kosher it, but to also cover it just in case. If you cover it and you technically don't really need to kosher it, you could clean it well and cover it, and that will be fine. If you want to also kosher it, that might be even better, because then if the cover is torn or something like that, it's still not the end of the world. Okay, but covering is safer than kashering. Now, when it comes to other types of of surfaces, for instance, what they call granite, but it's actually a type of ceramic, then in that case, according to some, it could also be koshered the same way. According to some, they say maybe it's more like earthenware, maybe it cannot be koshered, and therefore better to also then, just in case, cover it. However, again, if people don't put hot things directly on the shaish, they would put it only on something, then that's fine. You always make sure you put the pot on something, not directly on the shaish, and that is okay. That is not a problem. Okay, now the sinks. So if it is stainless steel sinks, no problem to kosher. If it is some sort of ceramic not sure what they call it, some sort of ceramic, then it's more, and especially if it has cracks, it might be more like earthenware, and therefore koshering might not be okay, might not be enough, and therefore it is desirable to have a special plastic thing that is fit into the sink, and that's and it can be used that way. Or if it's a bit messy, but it could be done with foil or something like that. However, cleaning it well and koshering is enough. I'll soon say how you kosher it, but doing that is enough even with ceramic. If all that we need to be careful of on Pesach is to not use the water which is too hot, meaning yad soledet bo, above 45 degrees. So you could use lukewarm water, but not hot water, and then you're quite safe. How do you kosher it? So you basically pour hot water directly from a kettle all around on the sink. I mentioned another method last year, which was, but then I realized that for some it's a bit messy. So whoever remembers can do that. Whoever doesn't matter. Just take hot water and pour from a kettle. Make sure it hits all spots the sink and kashers it. Now, what you have to be very careful is when you do pour the hot water, make sure the surface is dry, because if the surface is wet, then the water, it's wet with not water, right? The water which is on there is not necessarily hot. You're pouring hot water, but it mixes with the cold water, which is already there, and it's not hot enough to kosher it. So make sure it's dry. Only after it's dry, then you pour the water. And the kashering has to be done after cleaning. Yes, the hagala has to be done after cleaning. Okay. Tops, the top of the stove tops. So if it is gas, so first of all, any whatever top you have, you clean it properly, make sure it's spotless. And then if it is gas, you turn it on and put on the grid, put pots, cover it with pots, and leave all the fires on. You could put some water in the pots if it's dry and it's a long time on the fire, it might ruin the pot. So put some water in just for that, and leave it on, let's say for about 15 minutes, just for sure. Now, why the pots? Because you want to kosher the grid and the grid or the trevis, right? And when the pot is on it, the fire goes wider and it reaches it reaches a bigger part of the grid where it would usually reach when it's on, and therefore you want it to burn all the chametz all the chametz residue that might remain on the trevis. So that's how you do the gas. Now, does the water still have to be boiling when it's poured? Back to the sink and the surface. I'm asked, no, it doesn't. Why? I'll explain why. The reason why is because it has to be right after boiling. Don't wait. It has to be the second it boils, then you pour it. But it doesn't have to be still boiling as you pour it. The reason is because you do not boil water on the surface, right? The hottest that got onto the surface is water that was poured, and it wasn't poured from a boiling pot, it was poured from a pot that was boiled. So it might have been done immediately after boiling, so that's why you want to pour it immediately after boiling, but you don't have to worry for it to actually boil. Yes, okay. So now, so you went to gas. Okay, what about ceramic electric stove top? The ones that have ceramic or something like glass-like top, for Ashkenazim, it's not halak. Let's put it that way. The fact is that today people are more lenient about it because many already have it at home, but to Ashkenazim, it's not so simple because the Rama and many Ashkenazim that follow and the Ashkenazim that follow the Rama, then basically treats glass like earthware because it's made out of sand. Now, it's not because glass absorbs like clay. It doesn't. But since nowhere in the Torah or Chazal a distinction was done, then we also don't make that distinction, meaning it's a legal issue. It's not that there is chametz there, but legally, meaning halachically, this is not done, meaning we treat it, the halacha is that we treat, it's a din. It's not a reality, but it's a din that this is how we treat it. So for Ashkenazim, it might be a problem to kosher a ceramic stove. However, because today many people have it, then people are more lenient, and if that's what we have, then that's what we have. the way to do it, to kosher it after cleaning it well, put a pot with water up to the very, very top on each hub, turn it on and allow the water to spill over onto the ceramic. That is part of the koshering process, and then it's okay. Whoever wants to be Ashkenazim that want to be a bit more stringent, then it is advisable to even buy a separate. There are stovetops that you could buy, like just they're just the top. They don't cost too much. They could be gas or electric, and that you could have for only for Pesach if you want to be extra stringent. Okay, induction. The best way to clean induction. So if you are of the Sephardi bent, you could kosher induction like you kosher ceramic, no problem. If you are Ashkenazi, then it is advisable to cover the induction. There is a thin silicone cover. It's literally magic. I don't know how it works, but apparently you could put a silicone cover that covers the whole induction thing, and it will still work. And it's made especially for that. You could buy it in stores, and so it's basically covered, and it still works. So if you do that, that's mehadrin. That's the best. Okay, the oven. So if you have a self-cleaning oven, no problem. Turn it on self-cleaning. It burns everything, turns it into ashes. That's it. You don't even have to clean it, because once everything is turned into ashes, no need to clean it. You might want to clean it just that it will be clean, but you don't have to. If you have an oven that doesn't have self-cleaning here, then there are opinions. It's just good that we are aware of it. There are opinions that you cannot kosher it. Why? Because it doesn't reach close to 400 degrees Celsius, and which is more or less the degree of what is called libun chamul. And therefore, because you have to reach a degree where the residue is burned, and here it's not strong enough, meaning burnt, turned into charcoal ashes. It's not hot enough for that. So maybe it doesn't help. So there is such an opinion, but most do not follow it. Why? Because after all, the food does not touch the oven. The food is in pots. So therefore they say for an oven, it is enough to clean it properly and turn it on to the highest and leave it on, let's say, close to an hour, or until the thermostat kicks in, and then you leave it a few extra minutes, and then you know it reached its highest, and that's that. What we have to be careful in any case when we clean an oven is to make sure that, especially the rubber along the rubber or whatever it is along the edges of the door, that their crumbs get caught, etc., that is properly cleaned. And it is advisable to clean it with strong detergent. Always use strong detergent, because okay. Seventy says that you could also use baking paper on induction to cover, and it works fine. Right? Okay. Okay. Okay, so always use strong detergent to make sure that even if some crumbs are still there, what happens is when the detergent reaches them, then they're not edible anymore. Now, with chametz, we have to understand, chametz, which is not edible for human consumption, but is edible for animal consumption, is still considered chametz. So unedible has to mean unedible even for animals. But strong detergent makes it exactly that, right? It turns it poisonous, and then even animals shouldn't be eating it. So if we use strong detergent, then even the cracks and that we don't reach the detergent goes in there and basically spoils any chametz that might be there. Now, what is important to know is that I'll go back to self-cleaning ovens. Self-cleaning ovens, usually, in many cases, in the instructions, it says to not put the trays, to not leave the trays in it because they'll get ruined. And in that case, you cannot do it. But there are brands that allow you to leave that have special trays that they could handle that heat and you could leave it in it. Those trays, if they're left in there, then that's fine. Then they're kosher. They went through libun chamur. However, trays that cannot be in a self-cleaning oven, then they cannot go through libun chamur, and therefore you cannot kosher them for Pesach. So oven trays and racks, simply speaking, cannot be kosher for Pesach. When it comes to racks, we could be lenient if we don't have other racks. We could simply put them in the oven. If it's not a self-cleaning oven, we could put it in the oven and leave it on the highest. So it's not libun chamur, but however, we don't put the food directly on it. The food is in the pot. So therefore, there is room for lenience there. However, it is advisable here too to cover them to have an extra cover between the rack and the tray, the Pesach tray. We could put a foil or something like that to cover. Then that's if we could do that, that's a good idea. Okay. Cabinets, refrigerators, etc. We clean properly. Again, use strong detergent here as well, as strong as the material can handle. Yes, you don't want to ruin anything. There is no need to cover. Surfaces that are not used with hot stuff don't need to be koshered and don't need to be covered. All we have to make sure there aren't any crumbs there. There isn't that might get into the food. It used to be that, yes, in the Mishnah Berurah, he writes to cover surfaces, but that is because he's talking about wood and other materials that are not, they didn't have clean shelves like we have that can be cleaned in such a way that once they're clean, there is nothing that could really get into the food. So there is no need to really cover what we have. A microwave. So some people do not kosher microwaves. I think as far as I know today, most people do. How do we do it? So first of all, we clean it properly. And then after cleaning it, the plate can be done hagala. We do hagala with it. We immerse it in hot water. Now, sometimes after putting something in hot water, we immediately put it in cold water. Don't do that to the microwave dish because it will crack. It's glass that could handle heat. It won't crack by immersing it in hot water. But if immediately afterwards you put it in cold water, then the fast change in temperature will make it crack. So don't do that, but immerse it in hot water. If you do not immerse it in hot water, and sometimes maybe even if you do, it's better to cover it. So it could be covered with something that is on top of it. It could be wrapped in saran wrap or something like that it's covered. Now the microwave itself, how do you kosher? You put a bowl of water in it, leave it until it steams up, and then that's basically it. So again, the steps are cleaning, putting a bowl and steaming it up, koshering the plate, and covering the plate. Okay, so that's what we do to the microwave. What about the racks that hold the racks in the self-cleaning oven? The racks that hold the racks, You mean, do they need to be taken out? If they, so it's the same as, it's basically the same as the other racks. If you could leave them in the oven, wonderful. If not, then you could put them in. You could put them in afterwards. It's fine, but put it on the highest. Put the oven on the highest that you would cook food in, with them inside. A microwave combination oven, I'm not sure. I would say yes. I would say kosher it twice. Kosher it once as an oven, and once as a microwave. Once as an oven, once as a microwave, and also an oven. We have to make sure some oven, right? If it's an oven that has two positions, it could be a grill, it could be baking. Then we have to kosher it on both positions, meaning put the baking on the highest, leave it on, and then put it on grill and get it to the highest and leave it on. The reason is because grill gets hotter at whatever, if it's at the top, usually only at the top, and then it gets even hotter than it would be in baking, but only the top, not the bottom. When it's baking, then it's not as hot, but it's both the top of the bottom. But that is not the self-cleaning. That is an ordinary oven. A self-cleaning oven, you just put it self-cleaning, and that's that. Okay. It is important to remember, thank you, Amy, 24 hours waiting between the use of Chamez and the use of not of kosher for Pesach. 24 hours must go by. The kashering technically can be anywhere during those 24 hours. It is better that the 24 hours go by before kashering. So the best is to wait 24 hours, then to kosher. However, it's not the end of the world. If someone did the kashering 2 hours after the last use, that's fine. As long as there was 24 hours between the use of Chamez and the use of kosher for Pesach. Okay, what about the rubber in the microwave? You clean properly, and that's that. Again, like with the oven, you clean properly, make sure with a strong detergent, and make sure you take out the crumbs as much as you can, and the detergent takes care of the rest, basically spoils it. An urn and, before a dishwasher. A dishwasher, we clean properly, make sure that the drain at the bottom, that is where all the residue or all the filth comes to, so that is filled with Chamez. Make sure it's properly clean. You could pour boiling water, you take it out, put it in the sink, pour boiling over hot water over it after it's clean, and then clean the rest. Make sure that the whole thing is properly clean, and put it on the highest temperature and run it with soap. And that's more or less it. If you could take out the racks and take them to a Hagalat Kelim, there are going to be a few places where the Moatzah Datit is doing Hagalat Kelim, and they could put it in the Hagalat Kelim. That's better. If you could at home take water from a hot boiling kettle and pour on the racks, that's better than just leaving them in for a cycle. But if both things are too difficult, then there is room for leniency. Closing it and putting it on the hottest cycle is okay. Okay. Can an air fryer be koshered? I don't think so. I don't think so. I looked into it, and I think it's too complicated. I think it's too complicated. I don't think it could be koshered. A coffee maker that uses capsules, yes, a coffee maker can be koshered very easily. You clean it properly and then run it on an empty cycle just to make sure the parts where the coffee actually comes out from, you could, if you could take a cup, fill it with hot water to the very top, and take it to and basically lift it that it immerses it in the water just in case, and that's okay. And the frapper as well, if it's the one that goes into the cup or into something. If it is, I was asked last year regarding a frapper that spins, a spinning frapper, that too. You clean properly, and then you could run it with water in it, and the water cleans it as you do it, and that's fine. That's fine. Basically, a coffee maker is not chametz because you don't use it with chametz. So maybe if a crumb got into it or something like that. So just in case, you do what I said. Okay, an urn and the kettle, we basically fill to the maximum, and sorry. Before that, we clean it as much as we can, including all the what is it called, the stone, the even inside. We clean it as much as we can, and then we fill it to the maximum, turn it on, and when it boils, we open the tap and allow some of the boiling water to run out. By that, kashering also the part that is run out. We take a cup and lift it towards the tap, allowing immersing it also in the water, and by that, it is cleaned and koshered and ready to be used for Pesach. The michseh, the covering, especially if sometimes we might put chalot on it or something like that, it has to be done. We have to do hag'ala with it. We have to immerse it in hot water, in a boiling pot with water. A mixer should be could be koshered. The machine itself, we basically clean. The parts that come into contact with the food have to be meticulously clean, and we could do hag'ala to them. However, parts that we make dough from, cookie dough, things like that, should not be koshered, cannot be koshered. They're put aside until after Pesach. We have to and we should get different new parts for Pesach if we want to use them. A plata is better to not kosher. If someone could get a plata, it's not too expensive. If we could get a plata for Pesach, that is best. If we are in a position where we have to kosher the plata, then it cannot really be koshered. It's more covering than koshering it. We clean it to the best of our ability and cover it with foil. The reason why it can't be kosher, because sometimes things spill on the plata, and you could always, regardless of how well you clean it, I think, you'll find a place where you could, with your finger, take off residue. And you can't do a libun, you can't put it to fire because that would ruin the plata altogether. So, but it could be covered. So you clean it to the best of your ability and cover it. That is basically the part of cleaning for Pesach. if I missed anything or anyone has something that I didn't mention, you could put it in the comments and I'll mention it. Okay, shopping. Okay. Believe it or not, but buying eggs on Pesach might be a problem. So buy your eggs before Pesach. Why? Yeah, that is a no-no. That it's difficult to kosher. So basically, don't use that on Pesach. Okay, eggs on Pesach. Why eggs are a problem to buy in Pesach and should be bought before Pesach? Because a chicken that ate chametz on Pesach and had those eggs, then we are actually indirectly we are enjoying chametz on Pesach. It's a sugya in the Gemara. That's a problem. The same problem, by the way, occurs with to milk. But when you buy kosher for Pesach milk, when you buy milk on Pesach from Tnuva uses only milk from machlavot that feed their cows non-chametz on Pesach, and that's fine. When it comes to eggs, there is less of pikuach, there is less regulation, so it is not so clear that you don't know where the eggs came from, so it's advisable to buy them before Pesach. Okay, when you do your shopping, then you should make sure whatever you buy is kasher lePesach. Some items don't need kasher lePesach, but today you could get everything kasher lePesach, so why bother? But one item that is sometimes difficult to get kosher for Pesach, coffee lovers who like a specific type of coffee, and that is not always possible to get kasher for Pesach. So it's important to know that 100% coffee is kasher lePesach. It's not a problem. Last year, I was asked by someone regarding decaf coffee, and I didn't know the answer. I looked into it and asked colleagues who are in the industry and who know, and apparently that's fine as well. That's fine as well. So if you have a particular brand that you take and it's 100% coffee, that's fine, even if it is not kosher for Pesach. Kitniot. Okay, so Baruch Hashem, Kibbutz Galuyot, we go to the store and 80% of the items in the store, which are kosher for Pesach, are kitniot. Ashkenazim shouldn't eat kitniot, do not eat kitniot, that's our minhag, and I think we should stick to minhagim, it's very important. Basically, I think minhagim give us, especially children growing in a home. I remember myself growing in a home as a child when certain people do things this way and certain people do it another way. But it always gave me pride when I was able to tell my friends, this is how we do things at home. This is what we do, this is what we don't do. And it gives a child growing up in such a home a certain pride, a certain sense of identity. Like in the army, you have Golani, you have Givati. Now they're all the same, but a soldier that is in Golani or that is in Givati thinks that he's in the best unit, and it gives a sense of pride because that's how our human psyche works that way. So I think it is nice to stick to minhagim. Sfadim say slichot for the whole month of Elul, Ashkenazim only for the week. But so I think respecting differences and having a, let's call it a multicultural halacha is much nicer than having a monolithic sort of grayish halacha. So I think it's nice to sticking to traditions and to in a nice way, not to put down anyone else, not to say, oh, only whoever has this tradition is good, but this is our tradition and others have a different tradition and they're all good, they're all wonderful. And the greatness is of the multiplicity of traditions. So I think it is important. Kitniot, there are many reasons for kitniot. I don't want to go through why we do it. I think I'll give a shiur only on kitniot, not maybe I think it will have to be on Pesach because all the shiurim until Pesach are taken. But I will give a shiur on kitniot b'ezrat Hashem. So I think Ashkenazim should keep that minhag. There is room for leniency if for those who are not able to eat, for those who if someone has celiac or anything of that like that, then and they wouldn't have enough of a variety of food that they feel comfortable with, then there are grounds, halachic grounds for leniency in such cases. However, they should preferably use separate, if cooking kitniot is done in an Ashkenazi household for those who are permitted to eat kitniot, then it should preferably be done in separate utensils. That is the minhag. Liftit, which is canola, I think does not have to be considered as kitniot because it never reaches our table in its seed form. So therefore, even though it's seeds, it is a seed-like thing. It's not exactly the same. It's more like a flour. It's closer to mustard and the like. And even though mustard is considered kitniot because it comes to us also in its seed form from time to time, but canola doesn't, so it doesn't have to be considered as kitniot. That is according to most poskim. So if it doesn't say kitniot, it says liftit, then or if it says lochle kitniot and we read the ingredients and it says canola, then it's okay, I think. Now regarding quinoa, there are different opinions whether it should be treated as kitniot or not. My personal opinion is that it should be considered as kitniot because some of the reasons for kitniot, which I won't get into right now, apply to quinoa as well. But there are those who say that quinoa is not kitniot. However, if we do get quinoa, we have to make sure we get quinoa that is kosher for Pesach because it may contain some other grains if it is not. And also, if we are Sfaradim that we buy kitniot, we should buy kitniot that are kosher for Pesach because if we buy ordinary beans, rice, whatever, they could contain other grains in it. Okay. Medicine. It is important to understand, just a minute. Yorkshire tea is kosher for Pesach, even if it doesn't say it. It's tea, 100% tea, like 100% coffee. Once someone told me that no, but the tea bags might be used with glue that contains Chamez, but I researched it and I asked colleagues who are in the industry, and no, it doesn't. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, tea bags are okay. Yes, so if it says if it says kitniot, but when you read the ingredients, you see there is no other kitniot in the canola oil, then you could treat it as non-kitniot. You could treat it as non-kitniot. Okay, now, medicine. It is important to understand any medicine which is bitter, which does not taste good, even if it contains chametz, is not chametz. Because chametz is chametz only if it is food. If, for instance, I used grain to build myself a chair and I sit on the chair is not chametz, it's not chametz, it's a chair. So medicine which is bitter is not food. Even though I consume it as medicine, not as food. And therefore it is not food, it cannot be chametz, even if the starch that holds a pill together is made out of flour, since it is bitter, it's not food, I don't take it as food, I take it as medicine. It does not have to be kosher for Pesach. Medicine that tastes good, here there are opinions, and we have to understand it. There are opinions, not all opinions. There are opinions that since it tastes good, even though it's not food, to an extent I treat it as food because it tastes good. So, or maybe because the food, the good taste is not necessarily part of the medicine itself. Sometimes it's a coat on the outside or something like that of the pill. So therefore, medicines that taste good should have a hechsher. Vitamins are considered food and therefore should be on the list. So medicine that tastes good should be on the list. Vitamins should definitely be on a list or have a kashrut. We have to know that it's kosher for Pesach. Can one eat kitniot on the Shabbat after Pesach? Yes, absolutely. One can eat kitniot and on the Pesach dishes on the Shabbat after Pesach. That's not a problem. Kitniot are not chametz. It's just the minhag of Ashkenazim to not eat it on Pesach. The reasons, when I'll give the shiur on kitniot, we'll talk about that. Okay. I want to say a few words, 5 minutes, about bdikat chametz. The night before chametz, yes, correct. They have to be kosher for Pesach. Really. Whoever is going to, okay, sorry. The night before Pesach, the evening before Pesach, we do bdikat chametz. The mitzvah is to do it as soon as possible. So there are lists of things which we are told to not do until we do bdikat chametz. So immediately after Ma'ariv, we try to daven as early as possible. And immediately after that, we go and do bdikat chametz. Now, the Gemara discusses doing bdikat chametz with a candle. In some cases, it could be dangerous, and sometimes it's not as practical as a flashlight. So according to many poskim, using a flashlight is just as good, and for safety reasons, probably even desirable. However, because the Gemara discusses, makes a whole thing about using the candle, and as Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam, there is a whole way of learning. Some people try to use a candle. My advice is that whoever wants to use a candle could use it for the parts where are more in an open area where it's not so dangerous, and then do it for a few minutes, maybe with a candle, and then when going to the more to areas where looking under the bed, it might be safer using a flashlight. So doing bdikat chametz is basically going through the whole house, making sure there is no chametz. Now, some say that if we clean the house before Pesach and we know it's clean, we don't have to actually go through it. We could either we know we cleaned it, and if we don't know we cleaned it, someone else did, we ask them, we make sure they cleaned it, and only the areas where we had chametz today or lately, we make sure that there is no chametz there. Places in the kitchen where we might contain chametz and might have forgotten, we make sure that everything is okay, that we didn't forget it anywhere, things like that. Another way of doing it, because it's nice to go through the whole house and make sure that everything is okay, then not one person has to do it all. It could be divided. So the children go and do their rooms, and someone does this room, someone does that part, and we divide it amongst ourselves, and then each one does Bikat Chametz of some part. Bikat Chametz has to include the card. So we have to make sure there is no Chametz in the car as well. We have to check that as well. And our place of work. So we don't, according to most, and that's okay, we don't have to go on the night of the 14th and check our work, but before the 14th, we have to make sure that it's clean, that we don't have chametz there, or if we have that, that it's sold, and that's fine. Before doing bdikat chametz, we say bracha. Now, if I leave the house for Pesach, then what do I do? So some leave their house, they sell everything, and they don't bother with Bdikat Chametz. So if someone leaves the house more than 30 days before Pesach, one does not have to do Bdikat Chametz, really. There is no Bdikat Chametz, you just leave, and whatever is there is there. If we leave house within 30 days from Pesach, so there are opinions that even though we sold everything, the house itself has to be checked, has to be, because we were there, and we were already obligated within 30 days from Pesach to do Bdikat Chametz, and it's not advisable to get rid of it by just selling everything. And therefore, but we don't want to clean our house. So what do we do? So a good way, something very good to do, is to sell all the chametz, except for the chametz in one room, which we know contains no chametz. And then that room, which we know is clean and doesn't contain chametz, the night before we go, we do bdikat chametz in that room. The rest of the house, we don't need to do bdikat chametz because that's going to be sold. And that way we did bdikat chametz and we sold everything else, and that's fine. That way we also did bdikat chametz and also sold everything that we wanted to, and that's okay. When we do bdikat chametz before we're leaving the house, so we do it a week or two before Pesach, we don't do a bracha. A bracha is done only on the night of the 14th. Only on the night before the Seder, that is when we do a bracha. If we have to do the Bdikat Chametz before that because we're leaving, we do it. It's a mitzvah, but we don't do it with the bracha. If we are staying over in a hotel over Pesach, then we should do Bdikat Chametz with a bracha because the room belongs to us. So if we're there on the night of the 14th, we should do the Bdikat Chametz then. If we came later, so then it depends. If the hotel tells us, let's say it's a Jewish hotel, and they said we cleaned for Pesach, we checked everything for Pesach, then Bdikat Chametz was done by them, I don't need to do it. But if they didn't do it, they cleaned the room like they normally clean it, but not for Pesach, then I should do Bdikat Chametz with a bracha. Because my room in the hotel is considered my domain for Pesach, and I have a mitzvah of Bdikat Chametz. Now, if God forbid, I'm not in a hotel over Pesach, I'm in the hospital. In the hospital, you won't do Bdikat Chametz. What's the difference between a hospital and a hotel? In a hotel, you are in control of the room. You got a room, that's your room. You got the key, you control it. When you are in a hospital, they put you in a room and they could move you from there any minute. And therefore it is not considered your place. You don't do Bdikat Chametz. Hopefully none of us will be there for Pesach, but God forbid, just it's good that we know. Selling Chametz. Selling chametz, some people are careful to sell only not chametz gamur. Some people sell also chametz gamur. Some people are careful to not sell if it is not hefsed merubeh, if it is not something very expensive then they'll burn it, they won't sell it. Some people sell anything. We have to understand the sale of chametz is okay halachically, and it's not a problem to do it at all. But some people want to be more careful, more stringent, so they don't do it if it is not a great loss. Okay. Now, can you sell open packages of food with the chametz? Then theoretically, yes. But if it is not a great loss, then we could make a cheshbon. Look, let's say a half a pasta thing. A pasta package costs 10 shekels. If it's an expensive one, then half of one would be 5 shekels. It's to sell it is not really. Who would really buy it? There are organizations who collect chametz for tzedakah before Pesach, and they sell it. And after Pesach, they give it to poor people. That is a big mitzvah. That is a good thing. But if it is at home, selling your own chametz, then I wouldn't say, if you have like half a pasta or something like that, it's better to destroy it before Pesach rather than selling it. Now, how do we sell? Today, it's very easy. We go online and we sell it online. That's the easiest. There are lots of links. There's links of the Rabbanut, links of Tzohar, links of other organizations. Easy peasy. What if someone goes to America? Now, if someone travels to America and has chametz here, then there is a machloket. According to what do we go according to where the person is or according to where the chametz is? Because the chametz is here, and now it's already not allowed to, you're not allowed to have chametz in Israel, but you're in America. Okay? In America, you're still allowed to have chametz, but the chametz is in Israel. So what place does it go according to? Does it go according to Israel or America? So some say this, some say that. And meaning some say where the chametz is, some say where the person is. A way to, so just to be sure, it's good that when we go to America, we sell the chametz here in Israel, that it will be sold already when we're not allowed to have it here in Israel. Now, what will happen after Pesach? After Pesach, the goy already sold it back before the end of Pesach for me in America. So what am I going to do? That's not a problem. That's not a problem. Why isn't it a problem? Because even though the goy sold it back, I didn't purchase it yet, right? In order for a deal, you have to have two sides. If someone sells me something, but I don't purchase it, it's not mine. He may think he sold it to me, but I didn't purchase it yet. So that's okay. What we have to make sure is that the Erev Pesach is before is at the early time. What happens after Pesach, we decide when we purchase it back. Now, that is okay. Some are more stringent, and there is room for that stringency. That also after Pesach, to have it that the non-Jew sells it to us only after it is not Pesach for us as well, and therefore they would look for a place that they could have it early on the one hand, but the selling back will be at a later time. That is as far as selling the chametz goes. As far as getting rid of it, in the morning before Sof Zman Bi'ur Chametz, then we're supposed to get rid of the chametz. The best way of getting rid of it is burning it. It's a mitzvah. There are a few places where the Moatzah Datit has places where they have those fires, but a person could also do it in their own backyard. You have a small fire and put the chametz in, and that's a big mitzvah. After doing that, don't forget to do bitul as well. Bitul means we annul all the chametz that we might have that we don't know of. We annul. We say we disregard it. We don't want it. It's not ours for all the duration of Pesach and even after. I don't want it. I'm disregarding it. That's basically it. Yes. So yes, eating kitniot at the end of Shabbat. You know what? Maybe I'll give a shiur. Maybe I'll give a shiur on that, on eating kitniot on the Shabbat at the end of Pesach. I'll give a special shiur on that as well, or maybe that could be part of the shiur on kitniot, which I will give. So if anyone has other questions. Actually, what I could do now, okay. Anyone wants to unmute themselves now can, I think. Yeah, no, pure tea can be used. Any tea that has fruity flavorings, etc., shouldn't be used. Only 100% tea could be used. 100% tea, 100% coffee can be used. Okay, thank you very much. We will have a Chag Pesach Kasher v'Sameach.